worlds within worlds. Each one a network of relationships leading to the diverse and complex world we live in. And at the heart of many of these worlds is a very special group of animals. The insects and their close relatives, the arachnids and crustaceans, classed together as the arthropods. Together they account for 80% of all animal species on our planet. In these 3 specials, we're going to explore the connections and relationships that they have with us, our planet. At least one species of arthropod can be found in every microworld on Earth. From baking deserts and lush rainforests to open oceans and dark caves. Well, our planet is immense. But to understand how arthropods have come to play such a vital role, we must explore a wide variety of ecosystems. And we'll investigate the arthropods' greatest influence of all. Could they be responsible for the richness and diversity of nature's many microworlds? Surprisingly, these ants don't actually eat grass, but they have found a way to cultivate their crops, and this happens underground. The fungus releases carbon dioxide, lethal in large concentrations, but the ants have a clever way of combating its buildup. They construct massive towers that help draw fresh air in and suck stale air out, effectively acting like air conditioners. The arthropod's domination of an environment is not always so complete, but it can have just as big an impact. And today it's the home of 230,000 marine animal species. Arguably the most important of these, the ones that are the key to this whole interconnected oceanic ecosystem, are the krill. Found across the world's oceans, from the tropics to the poles, these arthropods fuel the ocean's food chain. The reason they're so vital to sustaining life in the oceans is their ability to consume phytoplankton on a massive scale. Phytoplankton are microscopic organisms, the sea's equivalent of grass, so vast in number their blooms can be seen from space. And krill are the ocean's biggest consumer of phytoplankton. Just one species, the Antarctic krill, has a combined mass of 379 million tons. That's over 90 million tons heavier than the biomass of the whole human race. Few large animals can feed on the ocean's phytoplankton, but they can feed on krill. So these tiny arthropods are a critical link at the bottom of the ocean's food chain. The krill feed the fish, which feed bigger fish, which feed the birds and seals, and so the food chain continues. But sometimes the number of links in the chain is remarkably small. The blue whale. The biggest animal that's ever lived on the planet has short-circuited the ocean's food chain and gone straight for the krill. Rather than teeth, these ocean giants are equipped with a fine mesh of bristles called baleen, which allow each whale to filter out up to 40 million krill a day. Without these tiny arthropods, the blue whale may never have evolved. Arthropods play a pivotal role in the underwater web of life. But their influence isn't just confined to the sea. On dry land, arthropods are also the key food source for a whole host of other animals. Birds, reptiles, amphibians, and mammals. Like the blue whales, there are also land-based animals that have special adaptations for feeding on arthropods, like the pangolin with its powerful digging claws, and the giant anteater that has a 60-centimetre long tongue, perfect for reaching into ant and termite mounds. But there's an even more surprising group of predators that rely on arthropods for their food, and they don't even belong to the animal kingdom. One species can be found in the boglands of Scotland. The soil here is waterlogged and lacking in vital nutrients, especially nitrogen. Under such conditions, few plants can grow. And without arthropods, many of our planet's food chains would collapse. To maintain its balance, it's vital that these nutrients aren't wasted. This is where our next team of arthropods play a critical role as the recyclers. Within the rainforests of Borneo, a giant cave is home to a staggering 3 million wrinkle lip. It's one of the densest concentrations of cockroaches in the world. It's the recyclers that hold the key to this cave's ecosystem. But their influence is perhaps even greater 5,000 miles away on the plains of Africa. This is the Serengeti, home to the Big Five, and the dung beetles. Using their remarkable sense of smell, they hone in on their target. True to their name, dung beetles are the masters of recycling dung. They don't need to eat or drink anything else, as dung provides all the moisture and nutrients they need. As the beetles roll off and bury their own food balls, the dung patch quickly vanishes. But for these beetles, dung isn't just a good source of food. This male is building a giant brood ball to help him entice a female. Mission accomplished. And now the female has the perfect place to lay her eggs. While the beetle's circle of life is centered around dung, the grassland's entire ecosystem is centered around the dung beetles. Without these amazingly efficient recyclers, the daily dose of 5,000 tons of dung would soon swamp the African plains. Thanks to the cleaning up operations of dung beetles, the grasslands are nurtured, allowing the grazers to be fed, which in turn sustain the predators. And it's in death where another team of arthropod recyclers come into their own. Blowflies can smell a dead body from up to a mile away. As soon as they arrive, there's a frenzy of egg laying as each female deposits up to 300 eggs on the carcass. In just under 24 hours, the eggs hatch, allowing the voracious maggots to get to work on the flesh. Using special enzymes in their claw-like mouthparts, They can break down proteins in next to no time. In less than a week, they'll have molted twice, consumed 60% of the carcass, and increased tenfold in size. With feeding over, the maggot begins its next stage of life. Within a few days, a fly emerges. This will go on to mate and produce the next generation of recyclers. So efficient are these recyclers that despite their size, arthropods process more flesh than all the large carnivores put together. By cleaning up dead animals, the waste disposal teams of the arthropod world limit the spread of disease and ensure the return of nutrients back into the food chain. This is all part of keeping nature's microworlds in balance. But there is a twist in this tale. The arthropods' efficiency and ability to reproduce quickly means that their populations could easily spiral out of control. So who keeps the arthropods in check? The answer is the arthropods themselves. The woodlands of England. Spiders mostly prey on insects and other spiders, and they use a range of strategies. She sits at the center with her legs resting on the spokes, ready to pick up the tiniest vibration. Its web may not look as impressive as the classic orb web, but it is far more deadly. She'll link in her trap. But to be in this web, flies don't get a second chance. In the rainforests of South America, a section of the canopy is enveloped in a massive. Spanning 3 meters across, it can capture a whole host of prey. Spiders off. Working together, they can kill prey many times their own size. They squirt glue from their spit venom. Numbering over 40,000 species, spiders are found across the globe and exist in nearly every habitat. Thanks to their silken traps and venom, these predators play a pivotal role in keeping the planet's many microworlds in balance. Taking over, but they're not the most important. To find out what is, we need to explore a far more harmonious relationship, one that began in prehistoric times. 140 million years ago, the world was a very different place. For these plants, sexual reproduction relies upon either the wind or water. With millions of tiny pollen grains dispersed in the hope that some are intercepted by individuals of the same species. Rich in oils and proteins, pollen grains are expensive to produce, and the majority are wasted. But then an incredible relationship began, which would change the colour and diversity of our planet, and ultimately create the richest ecosystem of all. The presence of insects allowed a new kind of plant to evolve. The flowering plants. To reduce the squandering of pollen, these plants no longer relied on wind or water for pollination. Instead, they recruited insects to pollinate them, with nectar-loaded flowers. Tailoring their advertisements to match insect senses, a burst of colour and smell quickly spread across the planet. in the fields of southern France, has fertilized, and the bee is fed. It's a win-win situation. Over the generations, this mutually beneficial relationship has created some incredibly specialized partnerships between arthropods and the flowers they pollinate. One of which can be found in the grasslands of England. The pyramidal orchid keeps its nectar rewards at the end of long tubes formed by the petals, so that a long tongue is needed to get it out. The burnet moth has one such tongue. As it feeds, a horseshoe-shaped package of pollen clips on to its long proboscis. The only way the moth can remove the pollen is by visiting other pyramidal orchids. This time, as its tongue reaches for a nectar drink, the pollen sacs come into contact with the flower's sticky female surface, and a speck of pollen is transferred across. The flower is pollinated. But an even more elaborate partnership has evolved in the rainforests of Central America. This strange-looking flower is a bucket orchid. Instead of nectar, it has a knot on its legs and will later use this perfume to attract female bees. Other creatures are attracted to this flower, but after slipping into the flower's fluid-filled buckets, few survive. The bucket orchid has an escape route specifically designed for its partner. Most of the flower is covered in a slippery fluid. But tiny knobs which the bee can grab onto guide it to an exit. And as it squeezes through the gap, just big enough for the bee, the flower's pollen is glued onto its back. Into the flower again. And this time, as it leaves, the pollen packets are deposited onto the new flower. And it's through this process, pollination, that arthropods have exerted their greatest influence of all. For over 100 million years, the pollinators and their flowering partners have evolved, diversified, and spread across the planet. With their success came an explosion of life as they created new opportunities, new habitats, and new ecosystems. Today, there are over 250,000 species of arthropod pollinators. 80% of all plant species on Earth depend on them, and without them, including the tropical rainforests, would not even exist. From the harvesters and providers, to the recyclers and controllers, each group of arthropods has a truly astonishing influence on the workings of our planet. But it's ultimately the pollinators that have the greatest influence of all.